So I find it interesting thinking about exercise when I'm trying to recover, because the traditional idea of exercise that we've that anywhere I've been provided was kind of gyms, gymnasiums, metal equipment. And I realise a lot of that changes online when you realise that calisthenics is this kind of huge thing. But within my environment growing up, I had absolutely no availability to anybody to talk about these subjects or to advise me on it. Like my older brother went to the gym, but he was always quite a private person, and so he never shared any of that stuff with me, really. And it's like, if all you're left with is the idea of the gym being the place where you get fit, it can quite quickly become, from my perspective anyway, a bit of a prison. For the simple fact that it's a structure that's only been built because human beings no longer live the way evolution designed them to live, which is just completely in contact with nature, being battered by the elements and having their bodies respond productively towards that, kind of effectively being beaten up regularly just by the elements. And so we've lost that animal part of ourselves, or no, I had lost that animal part of myself, which almost desired to feel some kind of some sense of oneness with this thing that doesn't really care about you didn't really care about what we think of ourselves as in this kind of Western society, which is like an individual who is completely separated from all things and is unique to himself. Whereas in reality, we're just ignoring how interdependent we are on everything outside of ourselves. And it's like, how many people are being taught how to endure pain productively? Because like that's something that's meant to be passed down. And if you grow up in an environment where you're just surrounded by people who are running away from pain because it got the better of them, and then they subject you to that same pain, and then you're unable to deal with it. You know, everybody just ends up in the horse manure. And it's like, how do you find the seed that grows flowers from the manure? And it's very much, I'm starting to think that seed is anger. And if you use anger effectively, it can basically provide the seeds necessary to grow flowers from shit. Big problem I faced when I was younger. I wasn't allowed to be unhappy with how bad our situation was. It was completely out of the realm of possibility that I was allowed to be dissatisfied with being surrounded by people who were, by so many definitions, just completely unhinged. You know, and when you're a kid, you have no defenses. You just kind of like shut your eyes, don't you? Try and pretend things aren't happening. But after years, it all just gets on top of you. And so an effective society needs to provide people with the necessary capacity of absorbing kind of social disharmony and somehow working out how to use that productively to improve, at the very least, the lineage of your own family, and at the most, improve society and the world as a whole. And the reality is, for me anyway, from my understanding, it's about pain tolerance. And so I always thought I could take pain, and through a lot of illness, cumulatively, over a long period of time, I've taken a lot of pain, but it hasn't been productive. It's just been like itching, biting, burning, joint pain, all this crap that just holds you back. But I didn't realize you're kind of meant to lean into that pain and see how uncomfortable it feels, and then move away, and then see how quickly you can return. I very much think of the life of a male. At some point, you realize that you don't live forever, and you pick up a pickaxe, and that pickaxe is, I suppose metaphorically speaking, it's the reality of your battle against nature, against time. And you use that pickaxe to mindlessly smash against coal or like just hard rock. And like every guy who realizes that life is short is doing this. And everybody's just hoping to strike gold. And some people, very effectively, find a good patch of gold and get others to start chipping away for them. And they develop systems of digging more effectively, and they can coordinate other people to dig in the same patch. But every bloke is effectively just holding a pickaxe and endlessly smashing against this rock, this unforgiving rock. And I feel like within males, there's this certain displeasure in any other man who isn't holding that pitchfork. And it's like, in a lot of ways, it kind of makes sense that they don't have as much respect for all the people who don't realise their responsibility to the people around them and how much they owe and how grateful so many of us should be just to have running water in our houses, electricity, you know, plumbing, bin men, all these things. And how much we actually owe our own countries and our own environment. And how that, instead of making us harder, has somehow made us maybe softer. And that maybe, rather than using those things as reasons just to sit in comfort, we could actually use those things just to propel our own potentials beyond anything that a lot of our ancestors would have thought possible. And I mean, they would have been brave kind of warriors or whatever, but it's more because of the information available to us now. We can strategically coordinate resources in a manner that hasn't really been possible throughout history, and that opportunity has never been so open to so many of us. It's like all you really need is food, water, and an internet connection, and you can be a wealthy man. I need to take note of that, because right now I'm so far at the bottom. And when you're that far at the bottom, you're always afraid to admit it, because it opens you up to this fear that you try and hide from within yourself. But it's like that fear is access to something that so many of us these days shut ourselves off from, which that fear is like access to our full potential. With these exercises, I'm finding, I think I talked about gyms earlier, or at least I was thinking about it earlier, but it's just full of these like metal contraptions in a building external from where most of us live. Some people have home gyms, I appreciate, but imagine how strong our ancestors were. Like, imagine the amount of strength you would have required to hunt in a pack of humans after woolly mammoth with like spears and pits buried and chasing them down avenues, and I mean the potential for loss of life just for the male effectively to get resources, so women and children didn't have to have empty bellies. I like thinking of everything in terms of that, because it gets rid of the mystique of our current society, and it really boils things down to the fundamentals. It's like the responsibility I have is I need to be able to basically be strong enough to acquire an effective amount of resources so that my family's bellies don't go empty. That's it. That is life for the male. We just stabilize the ground on which women and children sit. And so I suppose the male experience, the traditional male experience, is working out how to do that most effectively, to provide safety to the people in society who need a greater amount of protection. All right, I hope that conversation was respectful. I hope it was interesting. I hope it wasn't self-congratulatory. I hope it was honest. And I hope it clears things up for maybe a future me or anybody else who's watching this who's confused what the male mission is. It's just keeping people safe. That's basically our only responsibility. Making people feel safe. And it's just working out how to do that. Anyway, peace. Never give up.